When you click one of the images in the Mixed Arrangements page of the Hansel and Petal website, it takes you to a details page which contains some hard-coded dummy text. It doesn't matter which image you click, you always come back to the same page. So let's adapt this page so that it loads the details of the correct product. And for it to do so, the links to this details page need to identify which image has been clicked. The main content in the Mixed Arrangements page is being drawn from a database. So if we have a quick look at the database, we can see what we can use to identify each image. And each row in the database table contains an ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So we can use that in a query string of our URL. So let's go to our editing program, and the link to details PHP is on line 64. What we need to do is to add query string at the end of that. So question mark, ID equals, and then we need to have a PHP block to show us the ID, the value. And we're going through the loop, and row is an associative array that contains the values of each column in the table. So we need row, and then in brackets ID, close brackets. There we are. Let's save that page, go back to our browser and Mixed Arrangements. Let's go to Mixed Arrangements and we'll click one of these. It's raining flowers. And if we look at the URL, it's details PHP question mark ID equals. Oh dear, there should actually be the ID there. And this is actually a very common problem. I did it not exactly deliberately myself, but the common problem is you forget to put in echo. So let's put in echo there and save. Go back to Mixed Arrangements, and then we'll click Brighten any day. And now we've got a query string ID equals 7. And if we go back to Mixed Arrangements, get well soon, ID equals 5. So that's the way in which we're going to be able to load the information from our database into this details page. And that's the next task. To display the selected product's details in this page, you need to extract the value of the ID from the query string at the end of the URL, and then use it in a database query to get the appropriate database record. Extracting the value from the query string is easy. It's in the get array, one of PHP's superglobal arrays that was discussed in the previous chapter. But you can't put the value directly in a database query, at least not without running the risk of a malicious attack known as SQL injection. The URL can be easily altered, injecting code into the query that could expose sensitive information or even destroy all your data. So you need to take precautions. There are several approaches you can take. The one we're going to use is called Real Escape String. So let's get to work in our editing program and scroll right to the top of mixed.php and copy the whole of that PHP code block above the doc type. Then you need to open details.php, which is in the mixed folder, and paste that code block above the doc type. So this gives us the connection to the database and the basis for our new query. We still want to select everything from arrangements, but only where the ID equals a particular value. So we need to add that at the end. So it'll be where, which is a keyword in SQL, ID, which is the column name, equals. And ID is a number, so the value doesn't need to be in quotes. But we can't put it directly into our SQL query. What we need to do is to go outside of that quotation mark. We're going to add the dot operator, which will join two things together, two strings together. And we need to get hold of the ID from the URL in the get array, but also pass it to real escape string, which is controlled by our database connection. So that's DB, then the arrow operator, and real underscore escape underscore string, then parentheses, and the argument that we want to pass to it is our item in the get array. So that's get, then open square brackets, ID. That's what we're looking for from the query string, and then a closing parenthesis. And what real escape string does is it sanitizes any value which has been brought in from an unknown source and makes sure that it's safe to put inside an SQL query. So we are now okay to go ahead with our query. We've got the result already there. This time there's going to be only one row, but we still need to get that row, and we'll get it up here. But we need to make sure that there hasn't been an error, so we'll put that in an else block after checking for errors. And it will be the same as before. Row equals, and then it's the result that we're working with, the arrow operator, and fetch underscore assoc. So we are fetching an associated array of the results from our database. So this will contain all the results from that one query. So we've now got our database results. We've fetched the associative array. We need to just display it. So scroll down. The first place to display it will be this last list item in the breadcrumbs. Delete details, and we need to use a PHP code block, and we will echo, and it will be row title. And we need to do a lot of echoing like this, so let's just copy that. And it needs to replace arrangement name in the level 1 heading. And it's actually title that we need there, so that's fine. Then on line 39, the image name, that's to be replaced by row image. So delete title from between the square brackets and make that image. The alt text between the quotes there, that becomes row alt. We don't need to do anything with width, height, but the price needs to be changed. So delete the numbers, and it will be row price. And just one more thing to insert, that's the description. And the description has been saved in the database using HTML tags. So we need to just put that directly after this paragraph, and it will be echo row description. And we will save that and go back to our browser, go back to the mixed arrangements page and select one of the images. Let's brighten up your day. And that certainly brightened my day to see that we've got the results that we wanted. We've got the image, we've got the price, we've got the title. We've even got the title there in the breadcrumb trail. So let's just try another one, make sure that it's still working correctly, that we're getting different ones each time. Simply Elegant. Yes, Simply Elegant and the correct photo. Everything is now working very nicely in our details page. So we've now got a fully functional product details page. All that remains is to tidy up the error messages which are useful while testing a site, but should never be displayed on a live site. Hopefully you've got to this stage without displaying any database errors on screen. But errors do happen, so it's important to display error messages when you're testing your web pages. Without them, troubleshooting will be far more difficult, if not impossible. But those error messages should be for your eyes only. When it comes to deploying your web pages on a live server, error messages not only look bad, but they might expose information that could lead to a malicious attack on your database. So let's introduce a deliberate error into Details PHP. Go into our editing program. Here's Details PHP. I'm going to scroll up to the top, and I'm going to change the name of the table from arrangements to arrangement. That will give me an error. Save that, go back, mixed arrangements, we'll select one. And oh my goodness, we've got undefined variable up here, undefined variable. Oh, we've got mess all over the place. And this type of thing obviously is totally undesirable. But it's a good thing that it happens now rather than when it's on your real website. So let's deal with the situation. Back to the code. So let's go down to the beginning of the main div here. And immediately after the start of that main div, let's add some more code in there. And what we're going to do is to add a PHP block. And we're going to check if message exists. Remember that message takes error messages, but it begins off, let's just refresh our memory, it begins off at the top up here as an empty string. And an empty string is treated by PHP as false. So if there are no error messages, message will be false. But if there are error messages, message will be true. So if message, then we will need an opening curly brace for our if block. And I'm going to put some HTML in there, so we'll close off the PHP block. And we'll have an H1. Class will be inline block. And be honest, oops. So we've got a problem. And then we need to display what the problem is. So that's a PHP block, and it will be echo, and then we'll do a double quoted string. We'll have a paragraph tag there, followed by message. And then we need to close that if block, and we also need to have an else block. So else, and then the closing PHP tag there. And what we're going to put inside the else block is the rest of the page. So we won't display the page if there is an error message. So let's go down to the bottom of our div there. There it is. We need to have a PHP code block just with a closing curly brace. Right, let's save that and we'll test it again. Remember, we've still got that deliberate error in the page. And if we reload the page, it says, oops, there seems to be a problem. We're getting the error message down here, which is coming from the database. Table Hansel and Petal arrangement doesn't exist. Well, we know it doesn't exist because it should be called arrangements. Everything is looking reasonably good, but we've still got an undefined variable notice up here. So we need to get rid of that. Let's go back and improve our code once more. And in the breadcrumbs, that's where we need to make our change. At the moment, we're just echoing row title, even if it doesn't exist. So what we need to do is we need to check whether it does exist. And we do that, of course, with if is set. And what we're looking for is row title. Then we will echo title, but we won't echo it if it's not there. So we then need to put a closing curly brace there, otherwise we'll have a syntax error. Let's just save that, go back, check what's happening. There we go. We've just got a blank list item there. Seems fine. Oops, there seems to be a problem. So everything is beginning to look a lot better. But obviously, you don't want that type of thing to happen when it's a real website. So when you've finished with all of your testing, you need to go back through your error messages and get rid of them. Not get rid of them completely, but change them to something more neutral. So here, instead of displaying message, what we need to do is change that to something a bit more neutral. And we'll say that arrangement. Actually, we don't need it to be in a PHP block there, do we? Let's just get rid of that. Let's put it as a paragraph. That arrangement doesn't seem to exist. And then, of course, we do need to put in a opening PHP tag there because we took out that one before. So that seems to be fairly good. Let's just save that, refresh it. Oops, there seems to be a problem. That arrangement doesn't seem to exist. And you need to do a similar thing with the other page with mixed.php. Let's just quickly go back to mixed.php, and instead of echoing message here, we'll close that PHP block, we'll open that new PHP block, and in between we'll put something like h2 class inline block, and just sorry, there seems to be a problem. Now that should have dealt with most of the error messages, but let's just go up to the top of the page and introduce a deliberate error into the database connection. I'm going to change the password so we will no longer be allowed in, save it, and then go to the browser and load mixed arrangements. And oh dear, we've got this warning message right at the top. This is working fine down here, but we still don't want this type of thing to be displayed on screen. Now, if your remote server has the display_errors configuration turned off, then you won't see this. But some web servers don't turn that off, and if you can't turn it off in a configuration file on your own, what you need to do is to add the following to the top of pages that connect to a database. So let's just go to this page. Right at the top, before anything else, ini_set, and then in quotes display_errors, and then a comma, and then also in quotes 0, close parenthesis, semicolon, and that will turn off the display of errors. So let's just save that, go back to our page and reload it. That horrible error message has gone. We're simply putting a neutral message out to people. Sorry, there seems to be a problem. Many PHP books and tutorials leave database error messages turned on, but as a good web designer and a budding PHP expert, you now know better.